Eastern New South Wales has been hit with extensive rain this week, and while major flooding has not been an issue, longer-term forecasts suggest more heavy rain is on the way into spring. After the devastating floods earlier this month to the west of Sydney on the Hawkesbury River, residents criticised authorities and the government for not doing enough to ensure Warragamba Dam had enough of a buffer to limit releases as heavy rain fell. Are lessons being learnt, or are we sleepwalking into the next disaster? And joining me live is Professor Stuart from the UNSW's School of Civil and Environmental Engineering, and also the professor is regarded among his peers as the person to talk to really in terms of water management during extreme weather years, which is what we're seeing at the moment. Professor, thank you so much for your time. Now that we've had a few weeks to kind of assess what's been going on from the floods that we had earlier this month, around the 4th of July, we had Warragamba Dam spilling more than a Sydney harbour's worth per day, and this is while heavy rain was going on. What sort of impact did that have on areas downstream?
It had devastating impacts on areas downstream. Those floods, like other floods that we've seen over the last 2 years, flood areas around Penrith, directly below Warragamba Dam, and then further as you go downstream to Richmond, Windsor, Sackville, are the areas where we've seen many houses inundated, significant property damage. And every time we do that, we're putting life at significant risk as well.
In your view, was enough released from the dam leading up to the beginning of the month?
Well, no water was released from the dam leading up to those events, and that's because we don't operate Warragamba Dam as a flood mitigation dam. It wasn't designed to be a flood mitigation dam, and in fact the current legal requirements around how the dam is operated don't allow it to be operated as a flood mitigation dam. So what that means is we don't really release any water for the purpose of creating that airspace to capture those floodwaters when they come down the river. I think Warragamba was at about 97% of capacity going into the floods a couple of weeks ago. I think we're closer to 100% capacity now.
And right now, yes, that's right. Just having a look at the Water New South Wales website, it says Warragamba Dam is at 100% of its capacity, and there's been no change after last week. From what these people that have been living through those catchment areas for the past year, dealing with several major flood events, I mean, this must seem crazy to them.
Well, everybody is aware of the situation, that Warragamba is not a flood mitigation dam. Occasionally, we get some fortuitous benefit as a flood mitigation dam if the levels just happen to be low prior to the big infalls. That's what we saw in January 2020. We've just come out of a very severe drought during 2017, 18, 19. And then in January 2020, after the Black Summer bushfires, we had quite intense rainfall. The dam went, in that case, from being just above 40% of capacity to being up around 80% capacity. So that was just pure luck that we had the capacity there at that time to capture those waters, or it would have led to a significant flood at that time. But now the operational strategy as a drinking water supply is to fill that dam to the brim and to keep it full as much as we can, with no consideration for providing that flood mitigation benefit when it might actually be very much needed. And
in your view, as an expert on this, do you think that this legislation should change, and do you think it should have changed a while ago to avoid these disasters?
I do think so. I think that we have two different types of risks that we need to manage. First of all, we need to manage the flooding risks associated with keeping the dam full. And we also need to manage the drinking water supply security risks for Sydney. And so if we were to release water from the dam, we would need to think about what are the impacts on drinking water supply security going into the next drought. and how would we compensate for that. But I think right here, right now, we're in a period where we are expecting more weather. We have weather forecasts for more rain in Sydney. And so I look out my window, it's raining right now. We're in a La Nina period. We can look at what's going on with the Southern Ocean, the oscillation index. We can look at what's going on with the Indian Ocean dipole. And we can make some reasonable assessments of, are we more likely to be having more rainfall over the next couple of months or going into a drought over the next couple of months? And I think all the indications are for more rainfall. Under those sorts of circumstances, I think we should be re-emphasising managing the flood mitigation risk rather than the drought security risk. And we should be looking at reducing the amount of water that we keep in Warragamba Dam so that we might have the top 15, 20 metres potentially. Sorry, I didn't mean that amount. So that we might have somewhere between the top 5 metres and the top 12 metres is what we normally refer to. The top 12 to 5 metres to maintain as a flood mitigation capacity during the circumstances that we're facing right now.
Professor Stuart Khan from the UNSW School of Civil and Environmental Engineering. Thanks so much for your time, Stuart.
Thank you, Kenny.